Check it out.
Oh, good morning. Welcome in. It's a Max Effort Monday on the Out of Bounds Show, brought to you by Havana Smoke Shop. Oh, man, how about this weather? Sitting by the fire pit, glass of Four Roses bourbon, maybe in a La Flor Dominicana or Rocky Patel, Oliva cigar from Havana Smoke Shop, 2 locations, metro area, Reservoir and I-55 North in Jackson. This is 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. We are the Out of Bounds Show. Recapping the weekend, Matt Corral was unbelievable. So was Dak Prescott. Obviously, both with ties to the state of Mississippi, which is really, really cool. And some other great performances over the weekend. I know our next guest knows all about Davis Price. I had no idea who he was, but anyway, LSU running back. And maybe they'll make this game interesting this weekend with Ole Miss. We'll get into that in a little while here. Tom Luginbill, National College Football Analyst with ESPN. He joins us on the Sam Adams Oktoberfest guest line. Lugs, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, man. You're listing off all of your little relaxing luxuries there. I was going to say, can we just go do that right now? Can we just go sit around the fire and have some bourbon and a nice cigar and just call it a day?
Yes, I'm in. I'll meet you halfway. We'll both fly into Birmingham by lunchtime.
There you go.
Hey, you made the statement a couple of months ago that, Matt Corral was, big-time player and so on, and we talked about it over the summer, and he was great Saturday night. As somebody who played quarterback at Georgia Tech and so on, and who has covered all these guys, talk a little bit about how Tennessee took away, for the most part, an explosive vertical passing game. And basically, he is carrying Ole Miss with it. He had to carry Ole Miss with his legs, 30 carries, 195. Just talk a little bit about how few quarterbacks can do what he did Saturday night.
Well, number one, we got to give Tennessee some credit. Even when I had them in week 2, I came away very impressed with them defensively. They've got some decent players, and they do a really good job of keeping the ball in front of them in their defensive back end. So it doesn't surprise me that they were able to limit some explosives and the ball going over the top. But I think that from Matt Corral's standpoint, and again, this is where the game has evolved and changed so much, is when things aren't ideal, when things don't go to plan, all right, what happens to you on offense if your quarterback can't create on his own? And I think that can't be glossed over or overstated enough, because it didn't play to the way it normally does for them in terms of just going up and down the field and feeling like they could just, take any shot at any time and guys are going to be running wide open. So you've got to craft a way to move the football. And I think that his savviness, his ability to recognize those opportunities, if the front door is there and it's open, man, go ahead and take it, run through it. Those types of things I think are instinctive with him. Like, he just has a feel and a moxie for the position. And I don't think those are things you can coach. I think that you want to see competitive temperament, you want to see mental toughness, but mobility instincts is what I call them. To know when, to know how to get out of trouble, to know when to pull a rabbit out of a hat, all of those sorts of things, you can drill them and you can talk about them. But when the live bullets are flying by and the game's moving 100 miles an hour, the guy either can do it or he can't. And that guy can do it.
Yeah. When you look around the country right now, where do you go, Tom, as far as court? Do you go Matt Corral 1 and Pickett at Pitt 2, or how do you see it right now?
I think Pickett, in terms of production, would be a strong candidate for number 2. It's hard to argue that right now C.J. Stroud's not playing the best football maybe of anybody. I mean, threw 10 touchdowns to 0 interceptions in 2 weeks after coming off of that injury. I think he's playing out of sight. And to be honest with you, and I know it's a small sample size right now, but the guy at Oklahoma is the next Matt Corral, Caleb Williams. That guy's well on his way. He's special. He's different, and he's changing their football team. So I think there's a lot of guys out there that are They're playing pretty good football right now. But I don't know if I could sit there and give you a definite 2. And I don't know if the shelf is that far from Matt Corral, particularly from a production standpoint. Kenny Pickett's been on. C.J. Stroud starting to hit his stride.
All right. This is Tom Luginbill with ESPN on the Modelo guest line. This has been a crazy year, and I think it's going to be fun as we march down the stretch because we don't know for sure what's going to happen, like maybe we have in some years past. Walk me through what you think LSU could do this weekend. I mean, this is a huge game for Ole Miss, and LSU travels to Ole Miss. The one way to beat Ole Miss is to keep Corral off the field. They ran counter all day against Florida, and Ty Davis-Price, who I'm sure you evaluated, ran for 287 yards. How do you see this matchup now that LSU may have found something in the ground game, Luke's?
It's also the emotional announcement of yesterday, right?
Right.
So now you've got a coach that's on the outs. There's been a lot of speculation that, this had come as a result of players and coaches being unhappy. Whether there's truth to that, I don't know. Be interested to see how this team is emotionally. You get an unexpected win at home, and you did it in a way in which you've struggled to do it throughout the entire season. That was effectively running the football. And now you've got a coach walking out the door that's going to coach you for the remainder of the season. So this, and let's not forget, Lane and Coach O go back a long, long way.
Sure.
Not only to SC, but remember he hired Coach O when he was at Tennessee. So there's that element to it as well. So I agree. I think it's a really important football game for Ole Miss, but I'm going to be curious to see if LSU can do it 2 weeks in a row, right? They haven't shown the ability to perform to a standard consistently, not only quarter in or quarter out or half in, half out, but week in, week out. And that's going to be real big. Which LSU team shows up? Because you're right. If you limit Ole Miss's possessions, you're going to limit the points and you're going to keep yourself in the game in the second half. And that's really the whole key. Because I don't know if LSU, if they had to just line up and throw it with their injuries and the state of their team right now, that they're a bit of a fragile team, I don't know if they could just throw it 60 times a game and keep pace with Ole Miss.
That's a good point. And Florida threw all over them. I mean, I know they threw picks, but, I mean, right.
Yeah, right.
Tom Luginbill on the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone. So if you had to make a bet right now, do you think, like one way or the other, Ole Miss runs it playing LSU, A&M, Auburn, and Mississippi State? That's a physical stretch. Or they drop a game.
Give me those games again.
All right, so they've got LSU.
LSU, yep.
They have to travel to Auburn. They have A&M at home, and they go to Mississippi State.
The Auburn one's
Did we lose him? What happened there? Gremlin got him. Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN, brought to you by Havana Smoke Shop. 2 locations in Jackson at the Reservoir and I-55 North. All right, so Luke's, do they drop a game or undefeated on the way out with that lineup of games?
I think the probability is they could be undefeated on the way out. I'm concerned about the Auburn game. On the road, Auburn's coming off of a massively impressive win against Arkansas and now gets a bye week. That's the game I think you got to be careful of if you're an Ole Miss fan.
Okay. So Ole Miss plays LSU this weekend and then goes to Auburn. And, oh wow, I did not realize that until Tom brought it up. Auburn has a bye week. Wow. Okay. That's going to be – because even though LSU's down a bunch of dudes, they still have a bunch of dudes,
That's right. Yeah. You got that right.
All right, let's switch gears. Dan Mullen in Florida. I still believe – I think we were right on top of it for 9 years. I think I've seen enough to know that Dan can work his way out of this. However, it's getting warm down in Florida. Now, his losses are Bama, at Kentucky, and at LSU. It's not like he lost to South Carolina or Mississippi State or Arkansas at home. But
Right.
where are you right now? I mean, I guess he's got to make a decision on Richardson or Emory Jones. Where are you right now with the way the Gators are trending under Dan Mullen, Tom?
I think more of the pressure and the criticism on him is not a reflection of the wins and losses. It's his what I think fans call negligence to selecting the right quarterback. I think the fans are sick and tired of Anthony Richardson not being named the guy, feel like he plays better when he enters the game, and that Emory Jones is a liability. And for whatever reason, Dan Mullen has not been willing to come off of that. And there's got to be a reason behind it. There's got to be something. But sooner or later, he better make that change, because I think it's the only thing that's going to quell some of the upset fan base there, because I think it's more about the quarterback than it is about the performance of the team. They're frustrated that Anthony Richardson's not the full-time guy.
And you're behind that. You agree with that, right?
I do now. Early on, I was willing to give the benefit of the doubt as, you've got two new quarterbacks, neither of whom have played a lot. You're trying to figure out who's the best fit at the right time, who understands and can execute the most of the offense at one time. And off of that, all right, I can see through the first couple, 2-3 weeks. But now it seems like it's becoming abundantly clear that either he's just being stubborn or he knows obviously something, which could very well be the case, about one of the guys versus the other that nobody else does.
Okay. Interesting. Richardson looks talented. Dan's like that, though, man. He wants to give the upperclassmen at that position. And I get Emory bided his time. I guess every opportunity. You would think during the off week, if you had to guess, he makes the transition over the next 2 weeks to Anthony Richardson. Yes or no?
Yes, and I think what he's doing is he's going to use this off week to get the guy prepped for 2 weeks of rolling, of getting going. I don't think he's left with a choice right now. I just don't think he's left with a choice.
All right, let's go to Georgia. Are you all balled in? I mean, I'm still somewhat hesitant on the offensive side of the football, and I don't know what they're going to do with Stetson Bennett and JT Daniels. Obviously, on defense, they're absolutely elite and ferocious. Where are you right now with Georgia, Tom?
I'm in with them, and I think the thing that stands out to me the most, and the reason why, is think back to this team a year ago, okay, and how inept they were without JT Daniels at quarterback. And now all of a sudden they're not. And it's not like Stetson Bennett, this rare talent. He's not. It's not like he's this big physical elite passer. He's not. But what he has transformed himself into, and I dare I say it, he's transformed himself into a proper game manager. All right? Now, listen, every coach in America wants their quarterback to manage the game properly. But when you're limited talent-wise, you really have to manage the game properly. And what he does is just takes the plays that are there to be made. He hasn't forced it. He has not put themselves in negative play situations. They stayed out of 3rd and long, which has helped him because it's opened up the playbook for Coach Monken. There's a lot of layers to this that make a lot of sense. And when you're playing suffocating defense like that and you don't turn the ball over on offense, there's very few teams in America that are going to have a chance to beat you. And I look at Georgia the way I've always described Alabama, and I know it's overly simplistic. If you're going to beat Georgia, can you score 40, number one? And does Georgia help you? Do they do something uncharacteristic to their nature? Give up a punt return for a touchdown, fumble the ball into the end zone, give up 5 over-the-top passes of 40 yards or more, like stuff they don't do, right? Mm-hmm. You need them to help you. It's the same thing with Alabama that's really true right now with Georgia.
Okay, rank their defense compared to some of the better defenses we've had in college football the last 7 to 10 years. That includes some Bama D and Ohio State, Clemson, Venable, so on.
It's kind of like those 2009, 2010, 2011 Alabama defenses. They are so big and physical. I mean, I'm not so sure Jordan Travis shouldn't be a Heisman Trophy candidate. I mean, he's that good along their defensive front, and I just think that they've got difference makers, more than one, at all three levels of the defense. And there's very few teams that you can say that about. I mean, you look at how good Clemson is on defense, really, you look at how good they are. Would you think that James Skowski would start for Georgia on defense? I don't.
That's incredible. Wow. Okay.
Do you think there's a guy on that Iowa defense?
No.
Outside of Jack Campbell, there is not a player on that Iowa defense that would start for Georgia.
Think about that. And what were they ranked going into the weekend before Purdue upset them? Second?
Falsely number 2.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Give me your – are you going Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, or Georgia 1, Alabama 2? Or how would your –
No, I've got right now I think Ohio State's playing as good a football as anyone. I don't think they're anywhere near where they've been in the past on defense. So they're going to have to score points. They're going to have to score against Michigan and Michigan State. And you know, I don't know so much this week in my game versus Indiana. Poor Indiana is reeling, and their schedule has been just absolutely grueling. I think they've played 4 top 10 teams in their first 6 games.
Okay.
And now they got Ohio State coming.
Let's go briefly because we're talking about Georgia. And I think the G5 should have their own playoff. But
totally agree.
Okay, Cincinnati may get this thing done. Do you see that happening, Tom?
If there was ever a year for it to happen, it is this year because of all of the chaos and all of the disruptions in the top 10. But what it does, too, is I think it clouds the issue for the committee. You know, in years past, it's been pretty easy to figure out who 3 of the 4 were, right? Now it's going to be a little bit more difficult to figure out who all 4 are, you know, and I don't know. I don't think Cincinnati is an elite team in the offensive line, and at times they are a sputtering offense. I think they've got potentially 2 first-rounders on defense. They don't have a lot of depth, but if they stay healthy, they're pretty legit. Do I think if they played Ohio State's schedule, Georgia's schedule, Oklahoma's schedule, do I think they would be undefeated? Absolutely not. And I wouldn't be surprised if SMU gives them a problem.
Okay.
So, and that conference is so wacky that on any given day, something crazy can happen. And so I have Georgia, Ohio State, but I would put Alabama at 3. I think because the quarterback at Oklahoma is exciting, it's glossing over the fact that they still have issues. So I'm torn on who I would put at 4 or 5, Cincinnati or Oklahoma.
Okay. But if they go undefeated, you've got them in?
I still don't know if I'm convinced of that. I'd have to see how Indiana finishes out, Notre Dame finishes out.
Oh, yeah.
It's really the only 2 data points that matter for their schedule. And right now, Indiana isn't helping them. So let's see what happens with other teams and other conferences. I mean, could this be the year? Everybody talks about getting 2 SEC teams in the playoffs. Could this be the year it's 2 Big Ten teams?
It could be. Yeah.
You still got Michigan State undefeated. Penn State's still looming out there. Could be a 1-loss champ. Ohio State's undefeated. I think Iowa's out of the mix now because people actually truly know what they are.
Tom Luginbill on the Modelo guest line in the Out of Bounds show. Let's go back to LSU. There's all this talk that Scott Woodward, everywhere he's been, has gone big game hunting. He finally got Chris Peterson to lead Boise. He landed Jimbo. He's made some other hires in other sports. There's talk that they think they're above hiring Billy Napier, which I'd be very careful on that. But what are your thoughts when you hear of, I mean, everybody gets into the big name and the big press conference and whatnot. Do you have any read on where this could go, Tom?
I don't, but I think there's only one guy that you hire, and that's Mark Stoops.
Really?
Absolutely. This guy would be unbelievable there. He would be so good there.
But can he get the offense
Joe Brady,
where it needs to be? Do you think that he could – he has struggled on the offensive side of the football. I know he's got the Penn State transfer this year. But they have looked really clunky and discombobulated, having to put wide receivers there and so on. You feel like
due to injuries,
right? So you feel like he could. I mean, he's not going to be Lane or Lincoln, but you feel like he could Kirby Smart this thing.
Absolutely, there's no doubt in my mind. And this guy, what he has done at Kentucky is nothing short of a miracle. Look at that program was 2-10 when he took it over. Now all of a sudden they have a revamped stadium, a brand new football operations center, a brand new indoor facility. He's completely transformed the entire athletic program because football got good, and it got good pretty fast. And he hasn't taken a dip. With each elevation, it just keeps going up and going up and going up. I just think he would be a fantastic guy because there's a lot of proof in that pudding. I know that there will be overtures to Joe Brady and the Carolina Panthers. I get that. That's the comfort inquiry, if you will. But it's interesting because that's one of those jobs. Do I think a group of 5 coach is the route to go there? No. Would I take Luke Fickell over Billy Napier? Yes.
Really? Wow.
I just think he's done it for longer, and he's had a better football team. He's got better players. He's recruited better players. And, Billy Napier's been there, 3 years?
Well,
going on his 4th?
I can't remember when Hudspeth was let go, but I think you're right, 3 or 4.
On his 4th. So, I mean, listen, there's a lot of good football coaches out there that, I'm sure would be a nice fit there, but they can't get this one wrong. You got to make sure you got the right hire. The flash in the pan was exciting for a little bit, but now this thing needs some long-term stability.
All right, we got 1 minute. So you would take Mark Stoops and Luke Fickell over Billy Napier?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess if the LSU top brass thinks they're above Billy Napier, right or wrong, then they probably feel like they're above Luke Fickell and even Mark Stoops, who is at a P5. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if LSU can.
But here's the problem with your thinking. That leaves you with people that are high-profile people at their current job that probably aren't going to leave to take the LSU job.
Do you think Lane would leave to go from Ole Miss to LSU?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
And by the way, before we let you go, did you see my tweet yesterday?
I did.
All right. So Mississippi State throws for 300 yards and finishes with 299 total yards. Let that sink in.
They don't have a running game.
You think?
I mean, That I was there. I was there. Although I still don't think Bama is. I know we got to go, but I know the bar and the expectations are so high for them, but I don't see them as special. But Luke's, thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
You betcha. Take care, man. See ya.
Tom Luginbill on the Modelo guest line. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. You're listening to 105.9 The Zone ESPN. Brought to you by the Premium Cigars at Havana Smoke Shop.